Think about the basic instructor functions. Now think about disaster courses you have taken. What are some examples of these functions being carried out? For example, Gregory, when I say the word bridging.
Well, if you look back in segment 1, we use bridging to connect the information in segment 1 to what we were going to be covering in segment 2. What about task assignment?
Well, I know that every Red Cross course I've ever taken, I have to go in and introduce myself and say why I'm there. I think that's a task assignment.
I think so.
Well, what if I say summarizing?
Well, in our last segment, we used summarizing to go over the material that we studied in that segment and then highlight a few of the key points in that segment. What about intervening?
Well, I've been in those classes where you have the over-participator.
Yes.
And I always see the instructor take some effort to control that behavior and to let the rest of the class participate as well. Well, what do you think about climate setting?
Well, with climate setting, you want to make sure that everyone feels relaxed and enthusiastic and is eager to learn. But mostly, you want to make sure that people are comfortable asking questions. Some instructors actually use things like confetti and balloons and little treats on the table to set that climate.
I know those instructors.
What about 3 good communication skills?
Well, I like an instructor who has a well-modulated voice, who's not too loud or too soft, who also shows enthusiasm and has positive body language, and someone who I think listens well.
In this segment of the course, we've discussed skills that instructors apply to all courses and simulations. In the next segment, we will identify teaching methods most commonly used in basic and intermediate courses. A teaching method is a way of presenting information for the purpose of gaining new understanding, problem solving, or experiencing new attitudes. To facilitate learning, each teaching method should convey information to a student in a specific manner. The teaching methods used in each course are described in the instructor's manual. However, it's important for you, the new instructor, to obtain a general view of the teaching methods used in Red Cross courses. The methods most commonly used in disaster services courses are presentations, discussions, task groups, brainstorming, and role-playing.
Disaster services courses use a variety of methods to convey information. They will vary depending on the content. Some methods are better suited to quickly conveying information, while others allow participants to share their own experiences and opinions. The first method we will look at is presentations. Presentations are brief lectures that focus on specific information. They are often given with the help of aids, such as a whiteboard, newsprint, or overhead projector, to provide students with a visual image to reinforce the spoken word.
Now, you remember from the flow chart that actually taking the inquiry is just the beginning of the process. After the interview, you'll want to complete your Form 2079. Make sure all the information is complete. Don't fill out the vertical line on the right. You want to take the form and give it to the person that's transmitting the inquiries for the chapter. Put the form in a file folder with the person's name that's being sought at the top on a tab. Place the file itself in the master file for the DWI files.
Presentations are a great way to convey a lot of information in a short amount of time. However, presentations do limit participant involvement. It is important that instructors provide opportunities for participants to ask questions and also to check for understanding. Now, what are some things an instructor might do to make a presentation more effective and interesting to participants? Here are some things that you can do to make presentations more effective and interesting. You can ask a question. You can use newsprints or overhead to reinforce material. Or you can briefly repeat key information. If you will remember, this is repetition from Mars. Just be sure to remain within the time frames of the course.
Discussion is one of the most widely used methods for teaching Red Cross courses. In discussions, both instructor and participants actively contribute to learning.
Okay, during this activity episode, we're going to determine whether or not to continue to keep the shelter open. And what key functions or key people do you think would be assisting you as a shelter team in making that decision?
How about damage assessment?
Damage assessment, okay.
And Phil, probably family service, they'll come to the a shelter to interview the clients and find out what other needs they have that are unmet.
Okay.
But I also think it's important that the disaster director is involved in the decision-making process too.
Exactly. We don't work in a vacuum, and you have to get administrative involvement before you close a shelter.
Group discussions add interest and involvement to a course, but they are time-consuming, and the instructors may need to monitor the discussion to keep one person from dominating and to keep the discussion on track. One key to starting and maintaining group discussions is asking questions. Have you ever participated in a group discussion? Your answer was probably yes or no, since this is a closed-ended question. When you ask a closed-ended question, not only will you get a yes or no answer, but that kind of question doesn't cause participants to really think about a topic and to really engage in conversation. For these reasons, instructors should ask open-ended questions, such as, what are some ways to encourage group discussion? Beginning with who, what, when, where, and how generally leads to an open-ended question. Take a moment and think about an open-ended question about group discussions.
Some examples of open-ended questions about group discussions might be, what are some advantages of incorporating group discussions into a course? What are some disadvantages? How can an instructor encourage participation in group discussion?
Designs of many Red Cross courses use task groups to solve problems, to focus discussion on answering a question, to look at alternatives, or to develop ideas.
Page 37 through 40 are 4 situations that we have that are probably situations that you may encounter back at your chapter. What I'm going to do is break you up into groups of 2. And I want you to take the opportunity to go over all 4 scenarios. Kitty and TJ, I want you to take scenario number 1 and report back to the big group. Dorothy and Chris, I'd like you to take scenario number 2.
After assigning the
Keith and
task,
Devin, scenario
instructors
number 3.
observe the groups and, if needed, help them stay on track. When the task groups are finished, the instructors reconvene the total group to report out results and summarize the learning.
Task groups allow participants to apply what they've learned because they are interactive. They are also time-consuming, and they can be challenging because of groups working at different speeds. Task groups require a high degree of interaction between participants, but other activities in the course may require a different room setup. Imagine if you were teaching a course with a typical U setup. Now you're asking the class to work in 3 groups to complete a task. Using the resources pictured in the room, how could you clearly assign the teams and the tasks? Post instructions on newsprint. You could have some people move inside of the U. You may want to divide the class up into groups that have not worked together before.
Brainstorming is another method we use frequently. Brainstorming is different from a discussion in that the participants direct their comments to the instructor for recording rather than to one another for elaboration.
To begin this segment of the course, what I'd like you to do is to put yourself in the place of a person calling the American Red Cross, seeking help in locating a family member in a disaster-affected area. What we want to do during this segment is to brainstorm. I want to share some brainstorming rules with you that are very important. We want to generate as much information as possible. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. What we want to do is to give you the opportunity to be able to generate as much information as possible. If you were to call the Red Cross, what is it that you would expect from that worker that you're calling?
Well, I would expect compassion.
Compassion, okay. What else?
Efficiency.
Okay. What else?
Information.
Information, okay, okay.
To start a brainstorm, state as simply as possible the problem to be brainstormed. There should only be one problem to brainstorm. The ground rules for brainstorming are, ideas are wanted in quantity. The more the better. Criticism is not allowed. All ideas are to be recorded. Freewheeling ideas are always welcome. Ideas do not have to be practical or consistent with current policies or procedure. Ideas should be stated briefly. The ideas of others may be combined or improved upon. No individual credit is given. Brainstorming is a team effort. Keep the generation of idea phase going until the ideas stop naturally. Depending on the desired outcome, the group may select the most creative ideas or alternative solutions, if this was the purpose of the exercise. Finally, the group may rank ideas in the order that they would most likely work. In brainstorming, it's important to capture all ideas and keep the ideas flowing. What are some things instructors can do to help this process?
Instructors may write for their co-instructor, repeat ideas, ask if they missed any ideas, or ask the class to go slower, or even help with spelling.
Role-playing is the acting out of roles by selected participants. The action is spontaneous. Usually there is no script or set dialogue. Participants are asked to act out or react to a specific situation and to one another as the role-play progresses.
Okay, now let's take a minute and practice what we've covered so far. We're going to have an interview exercise where you will play the role of a caller or the role of a worker. We'll actually have you sitting back to back to simulate a telephone conversation, since you won't really be looking at each other. And what you're going to do is you're going to use your workbook. Page 29 is the instructions for the exercise. Using that page and the Disaster Welfare Inquiry Bulletins that Lewis just handed out, you will use these documents to conduct your interview. So what I'd like you to do is work with someone that you haven't worked with previously. Actually, when we're ready, Cheryl, I'd like you to move over here to work with Kitty, and then you two work together, you two work together, and you two work together. Now, just go through the role play once, being the caller or the worker, and then we'll take a minute and we'll debrief and see how that went before we switch roles, okay? You've got 10 minutes to conduct your first interview. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, let's get started.
Okay.
24 hours. You said 2 days, that was in 24 hours. Because I live in Beverly Hills, doesn't mean you can't get through any telephone. I've been down there since my last.
Role-playing can be an effective way for participants to practice a skill in the classroom and to receive feedback. Occasionally, a role play is conducted with 1 or 2 participants at the front of the room. If this is the case, you may want to identify outgoing participants in advance and ask if they would mind participating. Other courses have all students participating by working in pairs or in threesomes. When pairing up participants, try to have them work with somebody new. If there are participants who are having difficulties, pair them with a stronger partner. Observe the teams while they work and assist students having difficulties.
The instructional designers who write these courses take into consideration the length of time available, the level of interactivity of the course, and the complexity of the material when selecting the course methods. Try to include a variety of methods to make the course more interesting and informative. Follow the methods outlined in the course manual. In this segment, we have provided a brief overview of the teaching methods commonly used in disaster services courses. Please turn to your workbook and page 29. And now a task. Read pages 29 through 36. Complete the review questions on page 37. Do the skills practice on page 38.